All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over CSS positioning, which is a way to position things using CSS. Don't you love when people explain or define things with the words from the thing? That doesn't really make sense, right? So what is CSS positioning? So CSS positioning is one way to move things around or position elements on your page. My theory is, which was never proven, it's kind of a conspiracy theory, is that it was developed to, or I haven't proven it, let's put it that way. It was developed to sort of take the place of, this is back in the day when people were using tables and floats to do columns and make layouts for pages, basically. So what CSS positioning does, it lets you put things kind of exactly where you want them. It does cause other issues though, like overlap and spaces collapsing and things. So it never really replaced, it never really got into use, real world use as doing a whole page, but it is good for components and little parts of pages. Still used for that quite a bit. And you'll see what the issues with it, with doing it for a whole page. It was used back in the day in old apps, like I think Apple iWeb used it, and you would just draw boxes and then it would use this one, which is absolute positioning, to put things on the page. It looks okay, but it was kind of a nightmare and had some issues, so it's not really used for that as much. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to use all these different CSS positioning values to position some little boxes. So we have these little color boxes. We have static. These are the different positioning values you can use: relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. Sticky is one that has its own little scrolly box. I don't think scrolly is a word, but I made it up. So you can see how that one works. And then down at the bottom, there's an example of z-index. So when you use absolute positioning, for example, you have the possibility of one of the problems or possible issues is things can overlap. So if things are going to overlap, you need a way to say like what's going to be on top, and that's what z-index is for. That one's already done for you because I didn't want to make you guys type all day, but the rest we're going to kind of modify. So going over the different values, you've got static, which is the default. That's the normal document flow. That means left to right and then top to bottom, normal things, right? And then that's pretty much everything: paragraphs, lists, headings, etc. Then you've got relative positioning. So relative positioning lets you move something from where it would have been. So it's offset, right? And the place where it was stays open. So you'll see a hole, like where it came from. It's kind of interesting. It's good for things like image offsets, custom icons, reference points for absolute children. So you can use these two together to position things in a certain box. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Absolute positioning is removed from the normal flow completely, meaning you kind of take it out, and the way I think of it is the rest of the page doesn't even really know it's there. It kind of ignores it. So the space where it was collapses. You can put it wherever you want, and it will stay there. So it's positioned relative to its nearest positioned ancestor. What does that mean? You'll hopefully know by the end of this video. So it's good for things like overlays, tooltips, pop-ups, drop-downs, things like that. The next one is fixed positioning, which is fixed relative to the viewport. The viewport is your browser window, right? So you can stick something in the viewport or in the browser and it won't move. It kind of ignores the rest of the page as well, or it disappears from the rest of the page. It's good for things like sticky headers, chat buttons, back to top buttons, things like that. It won't move when you scroll. And then the last one is the newer one. These four are kind of older. This is like the surprise late addition to the family. It's sticky. So it's relative until you start scrolling, and then when it reaches a specific point, it'll stick like it's fixed. So it's combination of relative and fixed. You'll see that one. And it's good for like navigation bars, table headers, section titles, stuff like that. There's a little section here that talks about what you're going to use to position things after you give them a positioning context or positioning setting. So you have to say like, well, where do you want them to go? So that's what you use top, bottom, left, and right for. All right, let's start. So if I'm cool and nice, which I usually am, at least nice usually, I gave you a starting file, so go ahead and open that. You don't need any other files for this one. So I'm going to close this sidebar so you get a little more space here. And then we're going to scroll down to, so there's a lot of styles in here. Here's the part about z-index. So I did that one. That's already done. I didn't want to make you guys type all day, but I'll show you. We'll talk about it when we get down there. So you want to go down to around line, I guess 104 ish, and then that's where you're going to start adding stuff. So going to where it says position static. So we're gonna do this one, right? So it says all elements are static by default. You can't use top, right, bottom, or left to move things. So it doesn't really. You would use it to sort of reset something away from a previous setting. So kind of resetting it, I guess you could probably use that for. So you don't really actually use it that often, but you might. So we're just gonna go below where it says background. That's this blue box, input position. And remember, you can just start typing and then arrow to your whatever you want to use, and then we're gonna say static. And voila, nothing happens because it was already static. So remember, most things by default are already position static. So nothing to see, nothing to do there. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is position relative. So that's where you can kind of move it around a little bit. Other elements are not affected. You're going to get overlap. The space where it was remains. You can use it to nudge things from its original position, like an image in a container, etc. So we've got this box. It says relative on it. It's just a container. And by the way, let me go down and show you what these are. Now I got to find where that one is. That's static. So here is the little box. So it just is a little box, a little div. It has position box on it, which makes the sort of box shape. And then position relative is the class that we're using to style this. So the classes are already applied. There's two classes applied. The position box is like the height and the width and the alignment of the text and stuff. That's already in there. And then we're going to edit this one here, position relative. So go back up to position relative. There it is, right? And we're going to go down below where it has the color. That's the red box there, and say position relative. So nothing happens again. Why? Because we haven't said. Now it has a setting or a value of position relative, but we haven't told it where to go. Right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go below that and say left. And I'm going to do 30 pixels. And then I will do top 20 pixels. So what happened? What it did was it positioned it 30 pixels. The left side of it moves 30 pixels to the right. So it kind of pushes it over 30 pixels. So the left edge is now gone to the right. Even though it says left, it kind of pushed it. There's like 30 pixels of space there. And then it's not really margin. It's more you're positioning it 30 pixels from the left of where it would have been. Does that make sense? Or actually from the right. And then top 20, it moves it down 20. So let me try to show you here. If I go negative 30, left negative 30, now it goes to the left. So positive numbers go to the right, negative numbers go to the left. From the top, positive numbers go down and negative numbers go up. So if I go negative 20 here, it should go above where it was. Let's go negative 40. So you can see the overlap issue. So now I've got negative 30 from the left and negative 40 from the top. So the top has gone up 40 pixels and the position has gone left 30 pixels. It's a little confusing with the positives and negatives, but just think about it that way. Positive is right and down, negative is left and up, if you're positioning from the left top. We'll play with that a little bit too. So I'm gonna go back to, let's go 30 and 40 so you can see, and I don't know if you saw that, but it's overlapping. Now it's overlapping again, right? So that is one of the issues with using these positioning settings is you can get things like this, which you wouldn't want to have that, right? You don't want to have this box cover this text, but that's what you can have. If I go one more, if I go top 400, let's see. Where'd it go? Oh, it's down here. It's way down there, right? But I want you to notice that the space where it was is still preserved, so it's still there. So that is one of the characteristics of the relative positioning. So let's leave it like, let's do 30 and 30 so we don't really overlap it. Okay, 30 and 20. There we go. Still got a little overlap, but you can see what that's doing there. All right, so that is position relative. Let's copy and paste this and save a little bit of time, even though that's going to cause somebody some problems, maybe me. Remember, when you copy and paste and you copy and paste a mistake or forget to change something, you're going to have that mistake. So just be careful with that. So now we're going to do absolute positioning. So absolute means it's removed from the normal flow, right? It's kind of like missing from the document, sort of. And it's positioned relative to its nearest positioned ancestor that is not static. So you'll see what that means in a minute. If there's no positioned ancestor, it uses the document body. So let's do this. So let's go position. Let's copy this. Let's go down to position absolute and paste that in. But now we're going to do position. So right now it's doing the same thing as it was doing before. But now we're going to say position absolute. And it's position absolute. It's left 30 and top 20. Where did it go though? So remember what it said there? It said if there's no positioned ancestor, it uses the body. So it must be 30 pixels and 20 pixels from the top left. There it is. So it's 30 pixels down from the top and it's 30 pixels over from the left. And it's stuck there, and you see it's overlapping our header up there. So that's what it means by positioned ancestor. If there's nothing, if nothing's been positioned specifically with its container, then it's going to use the body of the whole page, right? So that's why it's up here now. All right, so that's if I position it left and top. What if I change this to, just to show you this real quick, what if I position, say, right 30? Now it's 30 pixels from the right. So the right edge is 30 pixels from the right side. If I say left, the left edge is 30 pixels from the left side. So if you use right, those positive and negative things will reverse. I know, it gets confusing. But most of the time you use left and top unless you need to do something else, which you might. But that's what you can use: left, top, bottom, or right. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I wanted to show you though is, so now this is positioned relative to the viewport, right, which is the browser. What if I want to keep it in its box, but I just want to move it around inside its box? So it is inside of a box called, let me go back down here. That is static, that one's relative. Here is the absolute, right? So it's in a box called container. So that's why there's an extra box around here. So there's container, and then there's the little green box, and then there's the explanation and stuff, all this stuff. So if I add a positioning context, it's called adding a positioning context to container that's not static, which basically means relative, then it will now look at this box instead of the browser. Right now it's looking at the browser window. We want it to look at this box. And you'll see what I mean when I actually do it. So I'm going to go back up to a little higher than we were, to container. It says add code here, a helpful little tip that I added in there. We're going to say position relative. Oh, look what happened. So now if I put position relative, it gives this container, which is this box. This is the container, this dashed thing. See, it says dashed right there, and it's gray. So that's this container. We gave it positioning context now, which is saying, which by the way we do that is say position relative. Now it's measuring, we have to go back down to absolute. It's measuring 30 pixels from the left of this box and 20 pixels from the top of this box instead of the browser. So that's pretty important. So you can put things in a box and put them wherever you want. So if I put right on here, right, it's going to be 30 pixels from the right of this box, not the browser. Yeah, I'm going to undo that. So I've got left 30 and top 20. Okay, I think that's good for it's good for, I was going to say what this is good for. This is good for overlays, tooltips, pop-ups, drop-down menus, notification badges, modal dialogues. so that they're in the middle of the page or middle of something else, that kind of thing. So if you want something at a specific spot and you don't care about overlap, you might want to think about using absolute. That one's used a decent amount of the time. Okay, the next one is position fixed. So let's just type this one in because I'm afraid of this copy paste thing getting out of hand. So remember, fixed is positioned relative to the viewport. It stays in place even if the page is scrolled. That's what it kind of does. It's used for sticky headers, chat widgets, back to top buttons, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to position fixed, and then I'm going to add, guess what I'm going to add? Position fixed. Right. By the way, these, don't get confused by these class names. These are just class names. I could call this Joe or Bob or whatever I want. It just has a class name that matches the positioning, sort of, but it doesn't have to be called position fixed or anything. It could be called whatever you want. You can't start with a number. It's just the general class names, right? So if I say position fixed, and then I want to give it a, I'm going to say bottom right this time. I'm going to say bottom and 20 pixels and right, just to play with some different directions, right? 20 pixels. All right, so we said position fixed, and we said bottom 20 and right 20. So here it is, it's 20 pixels from the bottom of the viewport. Remember, it positions relative to the viewport, which is the browser window. So now if I scroll, oh, check that out. I'm getting a little bit of overlap because of this guy here. That one has some z-index stuff on it. But the rest of it, it just sits there, right? And it doesn't matter if I resize this window or whatever, it stays at the bottom. That goes true for the absolute as well. I should have showed you that earlier, but it doesn't matter if you resize the window or what. It will move things around, but it's just measuring from the bottom right of our browser window. Pretty cool, huh? So that is fixed. The next one is sticky, which sounds kind of disgusting, but it's not that bad. All right, so sticky is down here. This is the one that uses, we have a little box here. This box has is larger than its container. I probably should show you that. I think it's up here. Well, I'm not sure where it is exactly right at this second, but basically we have a box that has overflow set to it, meaning I can scroll this box separately from the page. We could do it on the page itself too, but you'll see what I mean. So we're going to say position sticky. So we're just going to go down here and say position sticky. Oh, not static, sticky. They start with the same two letters, huh? So it says position sticky, and then we're going to say top 10 pixels. All right, so nothing happened, but if we scroll this, it will. So remember, it's a kind of a combination of relative and absolute, actually. So if I start scrolling, look at that, it sticks. That's why it's called sticky. So what happens when you scroll, it will stop scrolling when it reaches this position. So it says top 10 pixels. That means it's going to stop when it reaches 10 pixels from the top of its container. So I'm going to scroll, and then when it gets to 10 pixels, it just stops. I can keep scrolling if I want. So this is pretty cool, pretty useful for like sticky navigation bars, things like that you want to scroll up a little bit, but you want them to stop scrolling. They don't scroll off screen. It just stops there. So yeah. So it acts like relative until you get to a fixed, to the position, then it sticks like fixed. So it's kind of a combination of relative and fixed. Useful for table headers, navigation bars, section titles, things like that. That should stick to the top of the viewport or a certain container. Yeah, pretty useful. Okay, so the last part is the z-index, which is the layering, right? So let me just show you what's going on here with the z-index. So we've got three boxes. One's red, one's green, one's red, and one's blue. And they are overlapping because they are absolutely positioned. So if I look up here, you don't have to do anything on this one. I'm just showing you this one. Yeah, there's red, green, and blue. There is the position. You can see they're just a little bit different position on the three of those. Here's green. Here's green, red and blue. They're all a little bit differently positioned with the top and the left. But then you'll see z-index is 1, z-index is 2, and z-index is 3. So that means the higher, so the z-index, the way it works is the higher the number, it's on top, I guess, if you want to say it that way. So if I go and put, this one has z-index of 1, the green one, right? What if I put z-index of 4? What's going to happen? I can hear you saying, it's going to pop on top. Oh, it popped on top. I heard you. You said it. You were right. So z-index of 4 means it's higher than these other two, so now it pops on top of the red and the blue one. If I put it back at 1, it should go back to the back. No, let's put it at 4 just for fun. Yeah, let's leave it there. That way I can see that you guys actually did that part. That's good. Okay, so I think that's it. So just to review, we went through the different types of CSS positioning. Static is the default. Relative moves things around from where it would have been. Absolute takes it out of the flow completely and positions it relative to either the browser window, the document, or its nearest positioned ancestor. But you have to apply position relative to the ancestor. Ancestor means it contains the object, right? So it's like its parent. It doesn't have to be a parent. It could be any ancestor, I guess. And then fixed is going to act like it is relative, then it's going to be sticky. And then, or that's what sticky does, sorry. Fixed is going to be stuck to the viewport. It's kind of a bummer that you can't make something fixed in a specific container. It's just a viewport. But there are workarounds for that. It gets a little complicated maybe. And then sticky acts like relative until you scroll, and then it acts like it's fixed. So now this thing's following me around, right? So when you see those little ads or whatever, things are following you around, that's probably fixed. That's how that works. So I hope that helps a little bit with CSS positioning. It comes in handy for little tweaks to interfaces, moving things around, putting things in specific places. But you do have to worry about overlap and things like that. I hope that helps, and I will talk to you again later.